At this time, I yeah. At this time, I call to order public hearing. Sorry. Um, Presentation of amended and correction of the FY 2023-2024 annual financial report. Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Officer. Information and discussion. Ms. Lang.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Ventura, and Isaac community. This evening, I'm here to present the amended annual financial report for fiscal year 2024. And so the question is, why are we amending the AFR? And we'll also talk about the expenditures again, kind of by fund and by category, how we spent our money, the budget balance carry forward for our budget funds, and then we'll be open for any questions. So why are we amending our annual financial report? After some additional review of the data that we reported at the last board meeting, we discovered that there were some corrections that needed to be made. First of all, we had to correct our desegregation expenditures in the maintenance and operation budget, and that was due to a calculation error that was embedded within the actual forms that we received from the Auditor General's office, and so it doubled that amount, which caused our number to overstate our expenditures. We needed to, after we looked at it, we needed to update our budget numbers. The budget numbers that were reflected were from our adopted budget and not from our amended budget, and so we updated those. And then we also adjusted the expenditures in our district additional assistance, otherwise known as unrestricted capital outlay budget, in order to make sure that those numbers came in underneath the budget amount. So usually I show you this slide and I show you all these puzzle pieces that are mixed up, and then we make it look all nice and pretty at the end. Well, this time we kind of took an extra step and it was messed up and then it was still messed up. And so now we fixed it and it looks all beautiful. It's a nice put together puzzle. So when we look at the expenditures by fund type, some of the changes, just to point out in this, is obviously our maintenance and operation expenditures went down from 48 million to 44 million, where they should be, right? Our classroom site fund and instructional improvement, this was a question that Mr. Garwell asked because he said it doesn't match that page. And I said, well, it's because it's not just classroom site fund, it has instructional improvement also with it. So I wanted to make sure I put it on the presentation so that you can see that as the total of both funds. We also separated out the district additional assistance, otherwise referred to as unrestricted capital outlay, as a separate item this time, as opposed to it being mixed in with the other capital items. Then the other capital, so which caused the other capital items, the 17 million building renewal grants and other capital funds, that went down a little bit because of separating out those, the unrestricted capital number. Federal and state programs changed slightly, nothing big there. Food services exactly the same, and our other funds also just changed slightly. So overall, we just kind of moved everything around to make it look the way it should look, as opposed to the way it looked before. And then we also, our number did go down, our overall total expenditures, and that was a result of that mistake in the forms that caused that number to inflate on M&O that really should not have been that. So when we look at our two funds that are budget driven, where we receive state funding, our maintenance and operations, the budget was $45,663,915. We spent $44,954,594, leaving us a balance of $709,000. This is a little less than half of where we were last year, what we carried forward in 23. The important piece here is we do still have carry forward. It is about 1.5% of our budget, and so we're in pretty good shape there. Our district additional assistance, unrestricted capital outlay, a budget was $2,857,000. We spent $2,731,000, leaving us a balance of about $125,000. Last year for FY23, the carry forward was about 107,000. So we're still right in the same ballpark as far as that fund is concerned. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Girwell?
Yeah, well, first of all, Ms. Lang, thank you for making those corrections. My concern was that, we had a public meeting and some of the information was not correct, so I'm glad that we got that taken care of. And also, I did see on the maintenance and operation previously in the report in '03 of October, we were at 48,141,310. So we saw about a $4 million reduction. And I think that's what you were talking about in regards to that error that was in there.
Yes.
So,
Yes, sir.
that's a pretty significant amount of money in any category you go at. But also on the classroom site, I saw that also increased. So that was good. It was a little bit of a balance change, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
this one went up about just under 600,000. I think
Yes,
it's
sir.
about that. So overall, I think it gets us a much better picture of where we're at.
Correct.
And I'm glad that we're able to get those things corrected. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other question from the board? Is there any question from the community? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, I call to order the regular governing board meeting. Mr. Santa Cruz, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, and justice.
Thank you. Roll call,
Governing Board President Ms. Maria Guzman.
present.
Governing Board Clerk Ms. Maria Hernandez.
Present.
Governing Board Member Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz.
Present.
Governing Board Member Ms. Patricia Jimenez.
Here.
Governing Board Member Mr. Harry Gerwell.
Here.
Thank you. Next item is adoption of the agenda, approval of October 17, 2024 regular governing board meeting agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
I lost my page here. I don't know if it's switched. All right, thank you.
Motion carries. Next item, approval of October 3rd, 2024 public hearing and regular governing board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Question, discussions? Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item, governing board report, Mr. Girwell.
Yes, Madam President, just a couple of items. So I've been tracking ESSER three funds, for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. I'm happy to report that, as of October 15th, Isaac Elementary District received 34,830,000 and obligated 34,830,000. So we're not sending any funds back. And that's significant because, the state actually put out $2.36 billion and 2.12 of those are spent. So we're sending back $243 million back to the federal government. So as a state that's ranked 50th in classroom funding, that to me is just unacceptable. and for whatever reasons, but I think that those are the kinds of things we need to look at and help those other school districts that perhaps, weren't able to obligate those funds. And I know that a little bit because I had been working a little bit with the Office of Indian Education, and they were having difficulties in some of the tribal lands in the rural communities because they just couldn't get contractors there. So there's a lot of different, factors that come into that. But I'm glad that, we were able to get all of all of our funds obligated. And with that, I also wanted to share with you that I attended the Arizona Gaming Association Expo the last 3 days. And the reason that's important is because the amount of money that comes out of gaming that goes into education. So last year, and aggregated gross gaming revenues was $2,940,000 or $940 million. So in gaming, the state receives revenues of almost $3 billion, which is pretty significant. And in the aggregate, they give out 158 million, and education received 79 million, which is about 50% of the money that are dispersed. And I think it's important for us to understand what are the other types of revenue flows that our district can also take advantage of. And I know Dr. Ventura knows that because we've had some conversations and he shared with me as well. But I think it's important for us to know all the different revenue streams that are coming through that. And so part of this is because I just got nominated to be a associate member of the Arizona Indian Gaming Association, which I was happy to receive that application and that nomination, only because now we can really have some input in regards to where the education funds are going to be spent going in the future. So with that, Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Santa Cruz?
Thank you. I really don't have no reports. I just want to welcome everybody here. Hopefully it'll start cooling down a little bit, and hope all the principals and teachers had a nice vacation. It was well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez?
I don't have no report other than just a also, I want to thank all of you guys for being here this afternoon, and hope you guys were able to get a little rest over the fall break here that we had. And I've been going around visiting the different schools, and I want to thank Mr. Dietrich, who's been accompanying me as I go and visit the different sites. I've been seeing a lot of positive things out there, very nice. Um, you guys, kudos to you guys. Your school sites are looking very good, very active, very involved. It's nice seeing that the staff has been very welcoming, and also the kids. The kids, if they see you walking on campus, hi, and all of that. So that's nice to feel that welcoming part there. But and also, I want to give a special thank you to Ms. Lopez for the parent educators who have been putting out their calendars in advance. That is just such a very powerful tool for our community, for our families to be able to have all that information, to know what's offered and what's there for them. So, other than that, just keep up the good work, and I'll be seeing some of you guys. If I haven't been at your schools, I'll be there soon. But just kudos to the good work that's out.
Thank you. Next is me. I just want to welcome everyone back from a fall break. Hope you guys all had a good week. I did. Um, I have been visiting schools and doing coffee with the principals. And today I went to MKU, and I just heard the good news of like how the students are enjoying the lunches and how it's very positive. I heard feedback from parents, so I'm pretty excited. We just started, but I know there's still hiccups and stuff there, but I know we're gonna get through that, and it's gonna get better. Um, Also, I'm just looking forward for a second quarter. So thank you, Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you. Well, welcome. Hopefully you had a good break. I just want to been following Facebook. I'm your number one fan. Um, just the it was nice to hear and see the pictures of the students coming back with a nice surprise. I've been talking to some principals. I know the principal from Udall was telling us the kids are very excited. Your student council They're the ones that are taking credit. We did it. That's awesome. I think that's great. I know this is something that we've been working for a long time, and everything takes time. And we're growing, we're doing better, and it's just amazing because this is something that our parents, our families, our kids, and that they've been asking. So it's really nice to be part of this decision to make this place better. I noticed that we're not going to have a meeting till after the election, and I really think that, us being here and making these good decisions for our district matters. So it's very important that as a board, we continue having the right people in the seats to continue working together and not going backwards, how they say. Moving forward, it takes time, it takes consistency. That's the key, consistency. It takes that passion. It takes the support of the board to support our superintendent. I can't praise enough our superintendent, 12 years. That's the key. That's the key of making a district better. A good board and a good superintendent that's going to make things happen. I see a lot of districts that struggle. I see a lot of districts that superintendents come and go. 3 superintendents are already leaving, I believe, because they don't have the right board. So that matters a lot. So this things that we need to look, and I thank you for being here, for choosing Isaac and making this place better. So, like I always say, as long as I'm here, I'm going to continue that we work together and bring all these great programs, food, anything that we need to do because Isaac deserves the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent update, Mr. Ventura.
Madam President, members of the board, and Isaac community. This was a nice week to have off, so welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a chance to regenerate, re-energize, and reinvigorate yourself to get back to this important work that we do here in Isaac. Also, as we ended last quarter, our leaders got together and started looking at our goals to refine and improve because yes, this is about continuous improvement and always striving to be better, and we all can do that. We can all be better so that our students succeed. Um, Earlier this week, we began celebrating and recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day. We proudly recognize all the contributions of Indigenous peoples, especially here in Arizona, where our state is made up of many, many Native Americans, and their culture and their influence is found within our state. So we celebrate them. Also, as mentioned earlier, the new lunch program is off, and it's really neat to see the pictures of the students and how happy they are. They're making choices, and it's just, I can't put it into words. And I want to thank our principals because many of them got very hands-on because the lunch lines were slower because the kids had choices. And so thank you, principals and staff, for getting in there, rolling up your sleeves and helping out and moving these food lines along. Also, today's a very Thursday are a very special day for me because that's when I get to meet with the Superintendent Advisory Council. These are our middle school students, and they're working on leadership, developing their own leadership, and also learning about civic engagement. So, thank you, Miss KP Kimberly Preston, for she leads the group, leads the curriculum, but I'm there with her, and it's just been a great time in seeing these future leaders develop. Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next item is new business information discussion action. Item A, approval of the amended and correction of the FY 2023-2024 annual financial report. Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Officer. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lang?
Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Ventura, I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board? Call for the vote. Motion carries. Item B is approval for governing board to accept the fiscal year 2022-2023 single audit reporting package and the compliance questionnaire. Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Officer, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ling?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Ventura, and Isaac Community. This evening, we'll be presenting information regarding the fiscal year 2023 audit and the compliance reports. The information we're going to talk about is some of the legal requirements. What is the audit process? How do we get the audits? What are the different financial and compliance audits we receive? Our basic financial statements, our single audit reporting package, and then our uniform system of financial records compliance questionnaire. What has to happen as far as the governing board is concerned, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. The legal requirements come from Arizona Revised Statute 15-914. And really the piece on here says we have to have an audit, we have to have them come out every year. We contract with a private firm, we do an RFP in order to select that firm. But the really important one is H that was adopted and passed about 3 years ago by the legislature, that says a school district governing board or charter school governing board shall publicly accept all audits and compliance questionnaires by roll call vote. So this evening, when our presentation is done, we'll be asking you to accept these audits by roll call vote. What is the annual audit process? It always seems to revolve around finance, but it's not just us. An independent audit firm, currently our audit firm is Heinfeld and Meach. They conduct the audit, they prepare our district financial statements and our audit reports. A team of somewhere between 3 and 5 auditors review our records. They begin with preliminary remote work. We send them all kinds of files. They look at all different, they look at our purchase orders, they look at everything. And then they come out and they work on site for about 3 or 4 days, generally late November, first week of December, and they gather any of the remaining data. They work with our personnel if they have any questions regarding anything that that we may have sent them that they may have been confusing to them, and on occasion they come back maybe after winter break to finish up with the financials, but for the most part they finish that during that week. um, all of our audit reports by law have to be completed and filed with the appropriate agencies by March 31st each year. So appropriate agencies are the federal government for our federal programs, the Arizona Auditor General's Office, the Arizona Department of Education, and then from there it also flows to the county schools office. And now it's due by March 31st. However, in fiscal year 23, our audit was completed and filed late, and that was due to a number of different issues, primarily, although with our grants completion reports process and then also with our financial records. So the two big pieces of our audit that we receive is our single and our financial audit. This primarily involves the business office because it is our financials, and then our federal grants and programs area. We also receive a compliance audit. This is, do we follow what the uniform system of financial records says we have to follow? That's kind of our Bible as school district people. And this tells us how we're supposed to do all kinds of things. These are a few of the areas that they audit or that there's compliance questions on. Obviously, business office and grants. There's also human resources. There's technology, transportation, and these are a few of them. There's actually 17 different categories that they check within the compliance audit. So looking at the financial highlights, there were a couple of highlights from 23. We had about $86.1 million in expenses related to our governmental activities, which is an increase of about 10.4 million from the prior year. And that was funded primarily by our federal grant, otherwise known as ESSER 3, and roof replacements that were funded through the Arizona School Facilities Board. In addition, our general funds balance increased from $197,000 at the end of the prior year to $1.6 million at the end of fiscal year 2023. And this is important because not only are we in the positive, but it's also going to help relieve some of that risk analysis that the Auditor General does, because now we're building up the balance in order to support our expenditures and have the money there to cover what we carry forward, etc. In our single audit report, this is our auditor's report on compliance for federal programs. It also looks at our financials. Some of the deficiencies that were identified. The first one had to do with preparation of the schedule of expenditures for federal funds. Because of us having to move expenditures around, it was very difficult for them to complete the expenditure. Um, this has been corrected. We now have everything in line as far as our expenditures, whether it's in our state funding or whether it's in grants, without having to make a lot of adjustments. And so this piece has been corrected. So it won't show up in the 24 audit. The controls of our accounting records, right? Recording revenue, our journal entries, fund transfers. Again, goes back to kind of the same thing. We had to move a lot of monies around in 23 to get our grants to balance, to get our funds to balance, get our state funding to balance. And so recording our revenue and journal entries, and so keeping track of all of that. The auditors couldn't quite keep up with us. We knew what we were doing, but they couldn't quite keep up with everything because we didn't probably document it as well as we should have. And so that's where a lot of this comes from. Again, that's been corrected. All of those changes are not necessary, were not necessary in 24. Our capital asset schedules not completed on time. This has been corrected again. Capital assets are very difficult for us to monitor. Everything that we order that is a capital asset doesn't necessarily go through the warehouse, so they have to play catch up a lot to go out and find it at the schools. So we've developed some strategies and some procedures in order to make sure that we can capture all of those and have them ready on time for the auditors. And then our internal controls over federal grants, and that obviously flows from what was up above. And that's in progress. That's a work in progress, and we're right on track with getting that all straightened out. So we're in good shape there. The other piece of our audit is the compliance questionnaire. The compliance questionnaire is, again, against the USFR. There's a reason that they call it the you suffer because that's the way it is, right? And so the compliance questionnaire contains 170 yes, no questions, right? Over 17 different categories. So in fiscal year 2022, we had 22 out of 170 non-compliance issues. So we were about 87% in compliance. In fiscal year 23, we had 31 out of 170 that were in non-compliance, which still puts us at about 82% in compliance. So we really didn't just fall off the edge of the cliff. It just went down slightly and just enough for them to issue the Auditor General to issue our letter of non-compliance that we received. This we received on July 31st of this year. It gives us 90 days to write our corrective action plan. So our corrective action plan and everything has to be approved by them by October 30th. We have at this point submitted all of our CAPs. We have had informal responses from them, and we are submitting more backup documentation as we go along. And we should have everything done and all of the corrective action plans ready to go and approved by them before October 30th. We will be presenting that information to the board in November at our November 14th board meeting so that you can see where we're at and how we're doing on that corrective action. And in conclusion, fiscal year 23 was a tough year. Even the greatest of teams have off years. But it's how they respond to that adversity that defines their true character. 2023 was a very difficult year for the business office. We had changes, we had new employees, we had some people who were new to their positions, so we were developing procedures. 23-24, you remember all of this came from a year and a half ago. We're in 25 now. So in 23-24 in the beginning, again, it continued to be difficult, right? When as we went through, but when we got to 23-24, it's difficult, but I knew what those areas were and we addressed them. And so as we went along, we addressed them and improved our processes and procedures. The business office does have the greatest of teams, and they are all willing to change and to always improve. That's their goal. At this point, I'll happy to answer any questions, and then we'll ask for a roll call vote to accept the audit.
Is there any question from the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Gaywell?
So thank you for that, Ms. Lynn. I think, there was a lot of areas, that as we had spoken in the past, that, needed to be improved. There was some strengthening of the policies and procedures and some of those other things. So just to be clear, right now, we've submitted the corrections for the 2022-2023.
Yes, the non-compliance letter was about our 22-23 compliance questionnaire that was there. So yes, we've submitted our corrective action plans for those deficiencies.
Okay, so currently there's a July 13th letter that's still out there, so that should be cleared up based on the corrections you've been able to set to the Auditor General's office, correct?
Yes, the letter that we received July 31st was the non-compliance letter that it's it's really called a 90-day letter. So we have 90 days to submit our corrective action, and that's where we're at right now. They've all been submitted. We're continuing to submit backup, and we're just waiting for their final approval on our corrective action plans, and we will share those with the board in November.
Yeah, very good. And then the 23-24 audit, is that beginning this November?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's when the auditors will come in and they'll start looking at last year's financials and what have you, right?
Correct.
And so if we have all our corrective actions in place and, we've come in and shored up our systems, then I would suspect that we're going to have a pretty good outcome from that audit as well. Okay. Okay, so just two things, right? That we're on 2022-23. We're trying to get that wrapped up, and then we'll start the 23-24 audit in November this year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any question from the board? Call for the vote, Lluvia.
What happened here again?
Governing Board President Ms. Maria Guzman.
Aye.
Governing Board Clerk Ms. Maria Hernandez.
Aye.
Governing Board Member Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Governing Board Member Ms. Patricia Jimenez.
Aye.
Governing Board Member Mr. Harry Gerwell.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the whole consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
Madam President, I got logged out again, but I'll give you a verbal aye.
Motion carries.
I think that's it, all right.
Next item is call to the public.
Madam President, at this time, there is no request to address the Governing Board.
Thank you. Next item is information enrollments at 4,968. The calendar is October 24. October 24 is Resource Day at the Heart of Isaac from 9 through to 11 a.m. November 7, Isaac Staff 2024 Health Fair at Pueblo del Sol Elementary School from 1:30 to 3:30. November 11, Veteran Day, no school. And our next governing board meeting will be 5 p.m. on Thursday, November 14 at J.B. Sutton Elementary School at 1001 North 31st Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona 85009. And if there's no objection, meeting adjourned. Thank you.